What's going on, creators? Yeah, I just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. Yeah, today I'd like to continue the discussion on mental diets and really kind of focusing in on feeling as though your desires have already been fulfilled and really just embodying the law of assumption. And for those that are unfamiliar with that, it's a little bit different than say the law of attraction, where it's like on some level where what you desire, you kind of attract through your vibration and frequency and stuff like that. But the problem I've had with like the law of attraction is that a lot of times, for me, it was like almost like manifesting the opposite. Is like manifesting the undesirable, because a lot of the times with the law of attraction, in the present moment you're in a state of wanting or desiring, and it's like the present moment's never good enough. And a lot of times like the old mind wants to fill in feelings with things. And so it's like, oh, if I only had a better relationship, if I only had a better job, if I only had a better government, if I only had a better this, fill in the kind of fill in the blank with that, then I can be happy, then I can feel a certain way. And where like the law of assumption is different, which I have am through practice, have proved it through to myself at least, enough just to get on here and like share it with others so that you guys can do it too. Because it starts to happen is like you start to move in a direction of like, manifesting, really like that's kind of a trigger word for just like bringing from your mind into physical reality something, so it's like, if I want to be a really good guitar player, you can envision like who you want to be with that. You see like different musicians that you're like trying to like be at their level, and then put that into practice, be able to match that inner vision with like an outer result. It's kind of where I'm coming from when I talk about these things. But like when it comes to like the law of assumption, I feel like it's a biblical practice, where it's like just believing the promises of God, and one of which is whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it's yours, and so and putting that into practice and seeing it working over and over and over again, it makes you want to share it with others, because it's like it's for everybody to do it. And it's like so many times you see others states of suffering and enslavement, and once you've broke free from that, it's like you want to see others do that too, even though everybody's got a free will and a choice to participate in that or not. I was listening to oh, I can't remember his name. He's like pretty popular, like a newsy kind of, I think not a, I don't remember what it is, but they were talking about like these mandates and stuff, and that's so far from my day-to-day life. I don't even really think about it very much. And so, but I can kind of empathize with people that I guess are kind of dealing with that through like their work and where they're working at. But being having a business and stuff, like I have like kind of a different perspective on that. And plus like for me, I seen this shit coming years ago, not wanting to be part of this system, and actively making life choices that get as far away from that kind of leverage as possible. Because basically you're seeing a lot of leverage in manipulation and coercion on some level, but it's like you still have a choice. You always have a choice. And it's like for the ones that when this thing started, and it's like you didn't resist the 2 weeks, you didn't resist any of it, you didn't resist the mass, now it's come to this. Like eventually you have to say no. You have to be the one that does it, and so it's like, and in that is the freedom, though, because you are a sovereign being. And as long as you're a slave to these outer narratives and everything, I feel like that it is kind of the biggest issue. Because Jesus said the kingdom of God is within, and to go within, to seek that first. That was like a big like hey, if you're gonna do some of these like checklist things, like you need to do this and this. It's like Jesus kind of laid that stuff out already. So it's like you don't got to reinvent the wheel, but start shifting away from this this narrative shit, and really start going within. And ultimately, why are you doing these things anyway? Why most people work at places they don't like. It's like, I don't know if those stats, I know I never like worked for anybody else and really enjoyed it all that much. I always kind of just felt like it was like I don't know. I just never really vibed with that kind of thing. But I might be in a unique position because of kind of like the progression that I kind of went down was like, I had jobs, but then I pursued music, and achieved it, and like with that, then I, started, seeing how that kind of illusion, the music business in itself is, very illusion based and, buzz, based and just kind of hitting collective consciousness in a way and creating narratives and stories and and so much of it is like, the artists, some of which are well aware of what's going on. This freaking bee. I've got stung by a bee again. This is the fourth time I've been stung this year. These yellow jackets, just one in, just over here by this light. But so many tricks with the music business, including like pre-order sales on and that are like so say like an artist is going to drop a new album, and maybe they're in on it, maybe they're not, but like the labels and they don't give a fuck about music. They're just basically like banks, and like banks for like musicians on some level, but with that you lose a ton of freedom. And so much of these things are produced and wrote by other people, and then you got the faces that can move the units and stuff. But like, there's so many tricks to get on the charts. One of which is like putting the single in like well, it'd be difficult, I guess, now unless you're like touring through COVID with these vaccine bullshits or whatever, but like they'll include the single in the price of the ticket, so you get all these pre-orders, through touring that are connected with like the ticket price. And then all of a sudden when this shit drops, now it's like all those pre-orders count, so it's like, oh, now we got all these sales, we moved all these things, it gets you on the chart and gets so much of it's just flipping money then too. It's just like a return on investment game, and that's but the artists, like kind of look at like the music, it's like, oh, this is my baby, this is some baby, and meanwhile like the business people are just like shuffling shit around, just trying to move units. It's strange. It's a strange business, especially with like this with the internet then too. It's totally nuts. Speaking of that, I did get my quarterly payment from royalties today, which doesn't come out supposed to be till tomorrow. So I was kind of excited about that. I gotta fix my vehicle. And that's been turning into an ordeal. I still haven't done that. For those people that are continuously watching, it's been an ordeal just trying to mess with that. But like kind of get back off this tangent, when it comes to like the law of assumption, it's like you basically want all these external things, say it's music, all these milestones, and then you made it, or for you're maybe a career person in a different line of work, it's like, well, when you get that corner office, then you made it, and then all of a sudden you can be happy. But for the people that have done a lot of those kind of milestones, it's like the insanity is you do it, and then the you made it, it isn't. It just is. It's like, well, it didn't happen the way I thought. There's like some temporary little satisfaction immediately by, well, I guess if I just did it bigger the next time, then I'll get that feeling I'm after from these external means. And you can continuously get caught in those loops. But where the law of assumption differs from the law of attraction, it's like you embody that feeling that you're trying to achieve now. And it's really the only thing that you can actually do in the present moment is focus on, how can you feel as blissed out, peaceful, joyful, happy as possible right now. Maybe you get a desire of like, oh, if I only had a better, I don't know. It's kind of, if I only had a better house or maybe if I only had a boat, then I could be happy. Well, take that feeling that you think is going to how you're going to feel like when you have that boat. Maybe it's freedom for you, maybe it's joy just to be out in the ocean, just away from society, away from people in general. Feel that energy that puts you in and embody it like it's already a done deal now, because it already is. And that the only thing that's preventing that from being your new story is the past resistance patterns that say, oh, maybe you're not worthy of that, or maybe it's so hard to make money that you'll never be able to do that, or all these things that you're telling yourself that are ultimately are not true, that are keeping you in this little box, that are preventing you from feeling however you want to feel right now, regardless of what's going on. Part of like the law of assumption, as far as I'm concerned, and just in kind of like the instructions in the Bible, that from my opinion of reading it and putting it into practice, is about realizing that God's already blessed you. You are already connected with God. You're not separate from God anymore. The old man believes that believes it's a brain in the body that's just wandering around in this Middle Earth, just doing maybe some series of tests or education or something, and then you have to die to then actually live. Well, when you stop and think about it, it's like, okay, well, why does that make any? Why do I believe that's real? Why do I believe that story? And then you start putting on, some of the practices that Jesus told us, to do, in the Bible, of like, loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and loving your neighbor as yourself. And also forgiveness, and so many of these practices, that when the Jews would try to challenge him or bring up aspects of the law, which is very similar to this external force that you're starting to see in the world manifest now. I feel like a lot of that is like really affecting quote unquote Jews, that don't realize they're Jews, because biblically, the label that our culture now describes Jews as versus God's people, in the Bible. I think a big part of that paradigm shift, is going from this external, here's the tablets, it's outside of you, to, Jesus kind of clarifying a lot of them things and realizing a lot of this stuff is within, not to say that there's any, you can't take away some, truth from the Old Testament. I think there's a lot of truth in the Old Testament. And, a lot of people get triggered by the Old Testament because of, there's a lot of like vengeance and like destruction, and shit like that. But when you start to look at, these things through a lens of states of consciousness, and especially states of consciousness of the old man versus the new man, and that entire kind of paradigm shift that gets talked about as like the new creation that you are, in Christ, and how Christ is within you. And so as you start to really put that on, and how does that feel? What does that, what does heaven feel like? What does that emotion, that energy feel like? A lot of it I feel like is oneness, but as somebody is living and breathing now, we kind of can start to speculate and kind of build that picture, because I feel like that's a big important piece of life on earth, is to bring heaven and that entire kind of way of being to the present moment reality right now, and sharing that with others, and expressing and giving love instead of taking energy from others and spreading fear and this illusion of separation. And so with the assumption, the law of assumption, it's like everything is being mirrored. Looking at your life, your situations, your job, your relationships, your power level, your health, all of these things as being reflective to your real beliefs. It's like you can say you believe one thing, but if your life situation is not expressing that, you're kind of deceiving yourself. So and I could hear people getting triggered, that maybe had like a bad relationship, and it's like, well, is this reflective then of how I'm? A lot of relationships are reflective of your inner conversation you're having with yourself. And I can't speak from the perspective of like a woman, but like as like a man, as a husband, I notice a lot of like correlation between inner conversations, and like the relationship dynamics between me and my wife. Also, you start to see how sometimes maybe your partner's maybe doing something that's irritating or aggravating. A lot of times that's mirroring aspects that are irritating and aggravating within you as well. And if you look at your relationship with God as mirroring your relationship as marriage and on earth, a lot of times you can draw connections that are maybe hard to see unless you see it in another person. It's easier to see triggering things from other people than it is to admit that that's something going on within you. And that's a big part of like the new man, is really taking responsibility of your life and not blaming a they that is separate from you and that's against you and is like trying to dominate and control. Part of that whole paradigm is like being, you can look at that as being under the law, being under cause and effect, karma, versus, being under grace. And in that entire kind of biblical paradigm. But, without getting too much into that, definitely encourage others to read the Bible on their own or with others, whatever feels right internally to do, whatever you vibe with. But, like, just get into it, because there's so much that I've, like, kind of found in there that it seems like pastors or in organized religion, like, that I've been involved with in the past, for some reason have glossed over these things. I don't know if that's just... I don't know why that is, but like, getting more into it for yourself. I mean, you have to give an account for your life, and you can sit there and like, well, my pastor said this and society said this and this expert over here said that. And so, I just vacated my own ability to make any kind of judgments for myself or any type of decision making for myself. And I just was puppeted around like an obedient sheep the whole time. And that's between you and God if that was okay for you to be like that. I'm not going to sit there and judge or condemn anybody, but like, a lot of times people are already doing that to themselves anyway, but, the core, I guess, thing is to bring yourself back to the present moment, because it's easy to start drifting into the old man again without, if you're not being mindful, maybe something's triggering or something, that's I don't know, maybe a well-defined assumption or a belief about reality is just causing a block. And a lot of times, those blocks happen through multiple people, through multiple situations, like a relationship. If you keep getting in abusive relationships, maybe your parents were in a toxic relationship and that was like kind of what was normal for you. And then now all of a sudden you're kind of creating these kind of patterns too. Looking at that and not being an accident and not looking at that, well, that's what my lot in life is, but, looking at like why you may not feel worthy or maybe you feel guilty or whatever this block is like, well, this is the person I deserve. I don't deserve somebody who's going to treat me with love and respect and, kindness and compassion and, all of these, what I would describe as, beneficial, fruits of the Spirit. It's like, people by their fruit, I guess is how the Bible would say it. If their fruit is like love, joy, and peace and godly things like that, why would you trade that? Because there's not really a middle, there's like, it's not like a little bit pregnant, so it's either they're kind of like moving in the direction of like love, or they're just moving in a direction of fear and torment and suffering and taking and stealing from you. And you can look around at some of the predatory people that are out there in society and in your family too. I mean, it's like, it's not far away. It's if anything, this entire experience should show, it's a lot of these conflicts is not coming from the government. There's a lot of it's coming from families and people that and people that you thought were your friends that have just been snakes the whole time. But the thing of it is, you look at it and start really, how would you feel if you were in that ideal relationship? I hear people in kind of like the law of attraction, law of assumption community, talking about like that specific person shit, and like a lot of it sounds like you just kind of want some servant or some slave that just panders to you and everything else, but like it kind of falls in that trap again. And it's like, well, if I want this person to outwardly do X, Y, and Z, so inwardly I can feel loved. And it's like, you feel loved first. Start loving yourself first, and then that reflection will start to happen. Because if you just want the reflection, you're not going to feel the emotion. You're going to just feel empty, and you're going to keep creating these things and not understanding that the emotion comes first. So move yourself in that direction of, feeling that way now. How would you feel if it was already fulfilled? And that's the space to kind of start being in. So it's like, for if you're really into like a scarcity mindset, and that's the way the old man, for me at least, was very scarcity and not enoughness and that kind of consciousness. Letting that go, because you start seeing how much that's not real and how much that's man-made. And that might sound crazy for some people, but it's just like the more that you get out of that mindset, the more you realize we're all connected. So the way you're in the current of money, it kind of flows through, and as you give to others, you're giving back to yourself. And so like the idea of like, oh, making all this money and then just taking it and putting it in like a vault somewhere and just sitting there and staring at it every once in a while is kind of crazy, especially when you realize how money's generated up completely out of nothing. It's even like Bitcoin. I mean, that's why I never really got into cryptos, is just because it's like, oh, just another fiat currency that's created up out of nothing. But as an artist, as like an entrepreneur too, I can see how the things I do, I create up out of nothing then too, and put a value on it. And so I don't sit there to like, oh, well, that's a total scam, but it's just like, that's just how things are. You just kind of, the value is assessed by the other person, but it's also a reflection of the value you put on it too. So that person will mirror that, so if you're like creating, maybe music or art or, like a business, doing service, like I have a handyman business. So it's like not retail, it's like a service-based business. A lot of that's just guessing. It's like, well, how long will that take? And then, but you could just as easily undervalue yourself. So a big part of that is how you feel about it. And then that kind of just that energy other people subconsciously, a lot of times it's subconsciously picked up on. But it doesn't have to be. I mean, there's a connection that I think, as we continue to move more and more in this direction of letting go of fear. Ultimately, it just feels like letting go of fear in a lot of ways, and so it's like, you have these thoughts and these desires, but if you sit there and in the present moment, allow yourself to, how would you feel if that was real? Because you're missing out on that anyway, So it's like, and you don't need to be, So like with like feeling like abundance, part of that is connected with freedom on some level, yeah. But it's maybe easy to put a feeling onto like a 1 week vacation. A lot of people that work a lot, at least get a vacation. I didn't for a long time, but I started making a practice of doing that. And going to the beach, if you're not a local beach person, you feel like a freedom, like a peace, like kind of less like a tranquility. Well, you can put that on now. I mean, you don't need that to feel that way, is what I'm trying to say with the assumption. And you can take that as far or as small as you can, but before you start getting a bunch of resistance to it. Because, I've talked to some people where it's just like, oh, having hope about tomorrow immediately triggers them, because they feel so hopeless. So any mention of like, oh, you don't got to feel that way immediately, stirs up, resistance. And which is sad. It's sad that people are stuck in a hopeless state. But that is kind of a state of the old man, which is, all of these are states of consciousness. That's not who people actually are, but it's just what they're expressing. And they can choose to express something different. I've gotten to kind of an understanding where you just kind of let people be whoever they want to be, and to focus on myself. Unless somebody asks. If and not to even, I don't even really volunteer, unless someone says something, because I've had so many times, a decade maybe of trying to shake people, wake them up, and even with the madness that's happening at the moment, it's not that much different, and it's just more visible. In probably 2016, I was experiencing like the basically like the flood of people that are just like, I already experienced that. It's like I knew all these people would put these masks on in a couple weeks. It's just and be marching to this same narrative and everything, because I've already I've already experienced people in that way before it was so physically obvious. But not to sit there and feel like, oh, us versus them, because that's a false binary. But not to look at people, through a lens of compassion, because people are not lost causes. God made all these people, and so to sit there and make fun of them or wish any type of, if you wouldn't want that put on you, don't put it on other people. It's pretty much that simple. It's like the old man wants to convolute things and make it so complicated and complex. A child can understand the laws of consciousness, and most of them understand it better. And it's like you see them like bringing common sense to some adults that just want to convolute things, and then it's just like, well, yeah, because they keep asking why I gotta do what, why, that doesn't make. And it's like, oh, that's just the way things are. It's like, oh, that's a give up answer. But it is what it is. But I just want to keep kind of putting that out there, for the people that are kind of following this stream, because it's the only thing to do. Right now is the only thing to do is embody the feelings of joy, peace, and everything. Any desire that you feel like you're lacking, put it on as it's already a fulfilled thing. It's already a done deal because God's already gave it to you. As soon as your mind stops with that resistance about it, it will naturally start to reflect back to you. Because reality, the 3D world is always reflecting these inner beliefs, these assumptions, these things through our perception. And yeah, it's always kind of reflecting. So if you're holding a lot of fear inwardly, and being afraid of the system or the government or basically anything but God, when you boil it down, you are already afraid of God. And the reason being is, like, you can look at like all of these different fears, and the one that most people, I think, are, with the pandemic shit, is the fear of death. And so ultimately, if you didn't fear what happens after death, either that's like oblivion or God separating you from God's self, and all of these things, it's all part of that connectedness, but it's I feel like a lot of times I hear from people, it's like, why should I fear God when God's love and this and that? It's like, you are already afraid. It's who you are. I mean, it's just like you're fighting your natural nature, and it's like until you start realizing that fear in itself is connected with God, you keep creating these different theys to be afraid of, and then it's enslaving you even more. So perfect love casts out fear. So part of the thing in itself, this fear, is when you feel it, it's okay to notice it, but then start to catch what comes first, a feeling of fear, and then you have a corresponding thought. It happens very fast, but like you can start to become more and more mindful of the present moment and catch these things faster and faster, and to do immediately like, well, what about that is untrue, and then choose to have a new thought about it. Look at that as like, oh, well, that's the limiting belief and the assumption that I carry now. I can choose just as easily to stop telling myself that. It's like fear exists within the mind. And so, I felt fear, and I feel the corresponding, physiological responses and whatnot. Then I get the thought patterns that start to follow. It's like, oh, well, that's either, oh, that's fear. Oh, that's guilt. Oh, that's shame. That's part of a narrative I keep telling myself. And choosing to have a new narrative, what did God say instead? And it's like, God says you're a masterpiece. You might be feeling unworthy. Maybe it's a good example. It's like, oh, well, I don't deserve anything good because I'm unworthy and I deserve to suffer and be having a hard existence. Versus, well, God says you're a masterpiece and that you're blessed and that that God takes pleasure in prospering you. If God takes pleasure in prospering you, then why would God want to see you unprosperous? Wouldn't the same also be true that they would cause displeasure? It would be unpleasurable. If you you know, and that's as part of like kind of like the renewing of the mind process, which is something that you have to choose to do. You know, no one can do it for you. And so, yeah, with that being said, I think I'm gonna balance. I got to take care of the chicken. I got to work on some estimates and stuff. My guy, he's working at a job, and yeah, that all came together. You know, we just finished painting on a house, and yeah, it's neat watching that kind of develop, because now it's like self-sustained. It doesn't feel new anymore, which is kind of exciting. It's kind of yeah, I know people like drama and stuff, and oh, it's like success stories who, people want the conflict and shit, but like, you know, speaking from experience, it's just like embodying just being at peace about the whole thing. It's very helpful, because when I was doing only music, it's constant fear, constant putting out fires, constant shit to move around, and there's still a lot of shit to move around, responsibilities and stuff. But at the same time, there's not this constant what if, worst case scenarios, and what are you doing, Emma? In worst case scenarios and everything else, it's a lot more chill and relaxed, and things are coming together even more effortlessly. It's like just trusting that God provides. It's like I don't got to worry about where these customers are going to come from, and the jobs are going to work out great to bring the maximum amount of like happiness and consciousness upliftment in the community and stuff. That's really what I'm kind of shooting for, is just to put out good vibes and make do my part to take problems off people's plates and manifest what they want. It's like they've been wanting a house painted for however many years, to manifest that for them, to bring their inner vision into physical reality and match, if not what they had in mind, a step above it, so that they look at it and they don't have those negative types of stories about it. Oh, that person didn't fix it right, and they didn't listen, and whatever. You know how people are. But like and then the chickens are laying eggs. I just gave a dozen eggs away to my wife's parents. They just because the chickens are starting to do it. And it's just like another example kind of abundance, kind of the way I look at like money and like generating like wealth, is like to create things that like chickens, where it's like, oh, now once the initial setup is done, now they're just making eggs. So it's like, oh, I can give you 5 eggs and not even care about it, because I'll have more in the morning. And it's kind of the same kind of flow of just like, oh, I'm part of that abundance here. Take a dozen eggs. What would I care? Yes, I'll have a dozen more in no time. We don't eat that many eggs. I don't, at least. But like, try to now. I mean, now that we got the resources to do it, and like, I know how the chickens have been taken care of, and they're not abused and shit like that. I like that, and I hope to expand on that. I might even someday own a big piece of land with all sorts of animals and shit to take care of, and a pond to fish in, and just be out. I don't want to be totally out in the middle of nowhere, but I'd like to be out where I could shoot guns, and not think about like hitting anybody or like pissing neighbors off with loud gunshot noises. I'd probably hide that logo, or maybe see if I get an affiliate program for drinking gas station coffee. This actually isn't even gas station coffee. I had an estimate to go to this morning, and pretty an hour earlier than I normally do. I normally get started about 9:30. I had to be there at 8, which for me was somewhat early. But like I got that from the gas station. But then I got home, and my wife she's been ordering some groceries. I don't remember. I think it's Thrive Market. I don't want to. This is the first time she made an order, and I got these. I can't remember. I'm like really into like whole bean coffee, and so she got me. I can't remember what these beans, but it's actually really good. Maybe I'll show that to you guys if you guys are interested in good whole bean coffee. I grind it up every morning, and compared to already ground coffee, it's totally different experience. So it's like, if you really want to go balls deep in coffee, I'd probably start a whole fucking YouTube channel on just coffee. It's like every time I run out of whole bean coffee, I just try another, just whatever. I go to whole what is it, the Fresh Market, like all like these organic grocery stores and stuff. Fresh Time, Trader Joe's, things online, and just try out these different whole bean coffees. And yeah, this particular one is supposed to. I wish I just had it without I show it to you guys, but it's really good. Maybe next stream, if I remember, I'll show you or put it in the comment or the description or something. But I feel like I'm kind of just rambling. The turkey, I think. Is no longer getting picked on like he was, because I've been spending my afternoons when I get home from works with a hose and like with the chick. But I think the turkey's kind of bringing some of it on himself because he struts around so much, and like he gets in the other birds' bubbles and just like grunts and like it makes like weird noises, and he's starting to gobble a lot. When the train goes past, like my guy was out mowing my yard earlier, and the mower, he was just having a fit with him mowing, and like I was out there whenever the birds would get close to pecking at him, I'd spray him with the hose, and hopefully that has now chilled out, because I separated the turkey for a while. I in my chicken coop, I have like a big area for the birds and whatnot, and then I created like a separate area for like the lawnmower and stuff, and like a tiller and like a bunch of like equipment type shit, and weed whackers and whatnot, rakes, and like I put wood shavings down so that the turkey could be in there, and I took a piece of luan, which is just like a really thin piece of wood. It's 4 foot by 8 foot normally, but this is cut, so I stuck it in that opening to keep the turkey in there. That turkey can surprisingly jump that. I didn't realize that he could move like that, but it's not completely 4 foot because it's cut a little bit, but it's really close to 4 foot. And I was like watering the ducks, and like I just hear this thing barreling over the damn thing, and it like somersaulted, and it was like not the first time it did it, because I didn't understand how it got out the first time. I didn't think it could jump that high or fly that high, I guess. But like but then I was out there, and he just like tumbles over the damn thing, lands basically on his head, rolls on around on the ground, not even graceful at all, just it was insane. And then I was like, well, I guess I can't keep it. He's gonna kill himself. It's like if he keeps jumping over there like that, he's gonna land and break his neck. And like so had to readjust the game plan on that, and so they're all kind of doing good now, and found where they were hiding a lot of eggs. They weren't using the nesting boxes, but in the nesting, I need to do. I don't know if I need to or not, but like have better nesting boxes for them. But I live and learn. This whole thing's been an experiment for me. I've never had chickens or any of that shit before, but it'd be awesome to eventually, and maybe have a couple pigs and a cow or two, chickens and shit. Just have like garden, have like a, what do you call that, compound? I don't think that's the right thing, but orchard. I don't know. It's really peaceful. When you're around that much life. Even plants. I mean, they all put out an energy, and I don't know if people like live really really in a concrete city type thing where you're not really around that much. I don't know, plants and animals. It does make a difference. So if you are in a city, it does. I got 3 plants in this room. But definitely start bringing some plants into your house if you're in a city, and give yourself a little bit. You'd be surprised, by how much it affects the vibe of your house. It's really surprising. But like just start doing it for yourself and see. But other than that, I think I'm gonna bounce. So thanks everybody for listening. Try to embody those feelings, because when you do that, how you feeling right now? If you're not feeling good right now, then that's when you change it. I mean, the spiritual battle is not tomorrow. It's happening every moment of now. That if you're not sitting in I hear so many people just like trying to just worship their suffering. It's like, wow, just so many benefits to it. I love it so much. It's like, well, then suffer then. It's like, when are you not? Now. It's like these same people that just love it so much. Every time I see them, they're just unconscious about it in the present moment. And it's like, when do you actually experience the joy then? Because every time I come up to you, you got a problem and some drama, and feeling hopeless and problem after problem after problem after, it's like, if you love it so much, then don't bitch to me about your problems. It's like, that's the point I get to. It's just like, well, if you love it, that's fine. Love it, embody that state, be it, and yeah, do whatever with it. But then don't bitch. That's the thing. It's like if you're bitching about it, obviously. But yeah, it is what it is. But I think I'm about. So thanks everybody for listening. I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. I probably should say this at the beginning of the video, but for those that make it this far, yeah, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing. Appreciate your financial support too. Yeah, I try to keep in the flow of all of that type of stuff, and I'm really excited too. I just got a deal worked out, with one of my customers on a vehicle for my wife finally, and yeah, and that involves not taking loans from the bank and any of that kind of stuff. And I think that's important for people, because so many times I hear it from people. It's like, oh, that'd be great, but what about the money? What about the money? It's like, there's ways around these systems, this whole thing, these illusions. Just trust God. That God's got ways that are beyond what just all you gotta do is that God's already provided it. You don't got to worry about it. It's like you get tempted to worry about it or whatever. Maybe it's, look at it different, change the narrative that you're telling yourself if you're feeling like a victim. Oh, this is happening for me on some level. I don't understand it yet. And, maybe like try to look at it as like, oh, this is happening for me. And reframe it. God's already provided it. I'm not going to be tempted to fear when God's told me many times there's nothing to fear. Don't worry about it. Is this challenge, something that God can't figure it out? Of course God can. All things are possible, and it's already done. Creation's finished. All you got to do is walk into it and start embodying that new identity, and you'll start seeing the reflection starts. It's like we got so much corn growing. It's like, yeah, and people, oh, Mike's on cocaine. Yes, but it's like, no, this is, all this corn shit going on. Surrounded by thousands of acres of corn. And yeah, with that being said, I think I'm about. So thanks again for listening, everybody, and have a good rest of your now, and God bless.